I'm Alec Baldwin, and you're listening to Marketing Trends, and the leads aren't weak.
Consumers are different today than they were last year or even last week. Tastes constantly change, and if there's one thing marketers are frequently reminded of, it's that there is no secret recipe to understand consumer trends in the marketplace. All you can do is look at the data, and what it says these days is that consumers are more focused on brands' values than they ever have been. They want to see transparency and have trust in the brands they buy from. As a result, companies like Vital Farms are at the forefront of many consumers' minds.
There's a general movement towards people wanting to eat real food and know where it comes from and trust that source. And so that's very much the mindset that we focus on, less so a demographic, but more about a mindset of people that are willing to pay a premium for products that they believe in and trust, that are looking for brands that have values similar to their own.
Scott Marcus is the CMO of Vital Farms, a company that prides itself on bringing ethical food to the table while being honest with customers about how that happens. On this episode of Marketing Trends, Scott explains why Vital Farms' Traceability program is helping the company reach these value-focused consumers, and he explains how to meet customers throughout the buying journey. Enjoy this episode. This message is brought to you by Salesforce. Hey marketers, today's B2B buyers are more complex than ever, and every buying committee has different needs and goals. Salesforce can help. We'll show you how to put each and every customer at the center of your B2B marketing strategy, and you'll learn how top brands like Lyft approach account-based marketing. Salesforce, market to every account, speak to every buyer. Find free B2B marketing and ABM resources at sfdc.co/every-buyer.
Welcome to Marketing Trends. I'm Ian Faison, host of Marketing Trends, and today we are joined by a special guest. Scott, how are you?
Doing terrific, Ian. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Excited to chat about marketing at Vital Farms today and your background in marketing. So let's get into it. How'd you get started in marketing in the first place?
I've been a lifelong marketer. When I was a kid, I was selling rocks and seashells to my neighbors until I got in trouble for doing that. I created a baseball card business when I was in junior high school and was bringing in a couple $100 a week in my backpack until I got in trouble for doing that. But I guess that's the beginning of it all. I always had a passion for bringing products to market, meeting consumers' needs, I guess, and a little bit of, frankly, showmanship in terms of marketing brands and putting them either on TV or getting them into people's refrigerators and lives.
And so flash forward to today, tell us what it means to be CMO of Vital Farms.
Yeah, Vital Farms is a really special place to be. I started my marketing career after business school at Kraft, which became Mondelez, and cut my teeth on some really large brands, learning the ropes of not just marketing, but holistic brand management. And so after 11 years, coming down to Vital Farms gave me an opportunity to take everything that I had learned and really create a new brand that had not been known. We didn't have a marketing discipline or marketing team to speak of at that time. And so it began a journey of creating something that I knew had a great mission, that was meeting consumers' needs from an ethical food production perspective. And it was just a matter of building out a team and a marketing plan to start getting some traction and scale.
And so for our listeners who don't know, can you share a little bit more about Vital Farms?
Absolutely. Vital Farms is an ethical food company focused primarily on shell eggs and butter today. Our founder, Matt O'Hare, started the company back in 2007 with a mission to bring ethical food to the table. And what he wanted to prove was that you can produce food ethically, meaning treating the animals well, caring for the land, caring for your stakeholders, including your farmers, and do that at scale. It wasn't something that you just had to do in a small backyard or small farm setting and bring it to the local farmers market. This was something that he believed that we should be able to replicate and make national, if not beyond that. And so that's how Vital Farms began. And frankly, we are along that journey today. We are now sold in 16,000 stores, again, primarily in eggs and butter, but some additional products such as packaged egg bites that we launched last year. and continue to grow and scale. Ultimately, having gone public last year as a B Corp and a public benefit corporation as well.
Yeah, and we'll get into to a bunch of that stuff here in a little bit. I'm curious though, who are your customers? Who are the people that you have a connection with, and how do you think about marketing when you're in, like you said, 16,000 stores and trying to get the brand name out there and getting people to really want and understand Vital Farms?
It always starts with the consumer, and the magic happens when what consumers want and need is met by a brand like ours. And so the reality is, for now probably about 2 decades, there's been this shift in consumers focused on eating real food, knowing where that food is produced, and trusting the source of that food. And so the consumers has come our way, and this was a perfect brand and opportunity to meet exactly those needs. We are all about producing in an ethical way. We focus on our stakeholder model, and our focus from a marketing perspective is on transparency. That's how we build trust. And we'll talk about some of the ways that takes shape. But the focus that this brand has had on building trust and transparency in this ethical food production is exactly where consumers have been headed for, like I said, a couple of decades. And I started seeing that in my Nabisco and craft days, and was thrilled to be able to come to an organization like Vital Farms that already in front of where this wave of consumer demand was headed.
And how did the company start?
Matt O'Hare and his wife, Catherine, started Vital Farms in 2007 with a passion for farming. Matt had a number of egg-related businesses in his past and wanted to prove that you can scale ethical food production. And so they started on a small plot of land in South Austin with just a handful of chicks, and started to let them roam outside and feed them, food beyond feed, let them eat the grasses and bugs and worms, and recognize that the output was terrific. You got a richer egg, a better tasting product. And a lot of people believe with a different set of nutrients than if a hen is kept caged up or locked up indoors for its entire life. And so that fortuitousness, that the better you treat the animal, the better output you get as a consumer, was a great model to continue to scale and ultimately become what Vital Farms is today.
And so, as you mentioned, the consumer kind of mindset on this is shifting. Obviously, getting this in front of as many people as possible is important. Obviously, you all have some really cool packaging and a very clear brand image and all of that. Pasture raised is huge on all of your egg cartons and on every single kind of product you have. But how do you think about, going to market for the product? What are the types of things that you all do on your marketing team?
Yeah, Vital Farms is really focused on our mission and our standards. And so that's really baked into everything that we do. We very seriously vet people that join our crew. We make sure that they're close to our mission, that they spend time on the farms, they spend time learning our business model from the get-go so that we can communicate that accurately. And that's really important from a marketing perspective because transparency is so important to us. Everyone needs to be able to speak clearly, articulately, and truthfully about everything that we do in producing the food that we bring to market. Ian, you mentioned the term pasture raised, and that is a standard that Matt in the early days helped to formulate and codify. But ultimately, others have followed us into this pasture raised segment. And that's fine. It's a way of farming, but it is a different type of commodity than a free range egg or a cage-free egg or a factory egg. At the end of the day, what's important to us is our business model. And when we talk about ethical food production, that includes not only our standards on the farm, but it includes our stakeholder model. And we have followed a stakeholder model based on conscious capitalism since day one, which means that we think about each of our stakeholders in all the big decisions that we make, treating the farmers well, making sure that we're paying attention to the land and our communities that we operate in, focus on our suppliers and our consumers, as well as our investors, and not only on investors like a lot of companies typically are. And so our business model is really what the brand stands for. And that's how we go to market. It's all about the Vital Farms brand, not necessarily about the pasture-raised commodity farming style that is listed on our packaging.
And then what are some of the strategies and marketing initiatives that you all are running? What types of campaigns are you all running?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time focused again on our stakeholders, including our consumers. And in these early days, a lot of that's about building awareness and education about what we do, what makes Vital Farms different, and understanding where their food comes from. One way we've done that in the past is through our free campaign. That was our first foray into advertising, where we paid some media dollars to reach people. And the notion is that a lot of people have heard about cage-free eggs. It's been in the press for a number of years. A lot of companies are making pledges to move to cage-free. But the reality is consumers, in fact, 92% of them think that cage-free eggs come from hens that run around outside freely, while the truth is that cage-free eggs are just hens inside a big factory without cages. And so we dubbed our effort free instead of cage-free because we wanted to show the truth about what cage-free is, but also, more importantly, the truth about how we farm and how we bring our products to market. And so that was a way for us to, I think, punch above our weight a little bit, a little bit of humor, and using the phrase certainly got some eyes open wide, but helped us to stand out again, especially in the early days when we had very low awareness and needed to start making some noise in the marketplace.
Do you think of things in terms of market saturation or brand awareness within the market, or like a target demographic or ideal customer profiles? Like, who are the types of people that, that you're going after?
Yeah, absolutely. From a consumer standpoint, as I was speaking about earlier, there's a general movement towards people wanting to eat real food and know where it comes from and trust that source. And so that's very much the mindset that we focus on, less so a demographic, but more about a mindset of people that are willing to pay a premium for products that they believe in and trust, that are looking for brands that have values similar to their own, and certainly people that are paying attention to the foods that they eat themselves and feed their families. And so those mindsets, those psychographics are really how we identify who we speak to and who we focus on.
When you, like you said, you're in 16,000 stores, what is the primary, way to I'd imagine that there's just so much of what you're doing that's, driving brand awareness to who you are and what you do. But when you're in 16,000 stores, obviously, where you are in the store, what types of activations, different sort of things that you're doing there are going to be a key part of it. But having a direct relationship with your consumers is often pretty difficult. I'm curious, how do you think about that?
Yeah, Ian, that's a great point. I definitely sometimes envy the folks who have those direct to consumer one-on-one relationships and can track progress, have more robust dialogue, and have some marketing attribution, frankly. Without that, and we certainly are sold through retailers, and so there's that intermediary. And we spend a lot of time thinking about the consumer or shopper journey and making sure that on the front end, we are building some awareness of Vital Farms and educating people about what makes us different, but certainly closer to that point of purchase, that point of decision, making sure we've got the right messaging on our packaging, at the shelf, which is increasingly is also a digital shelf, and then following through not only with terrific product quality, but making sure that folks have a great experience. One thing that we've always done since day one was insert what we call the Vital Times, a little newsletter inside of our egg cartons. And that helps reinforce what we do. It tells stories about our farms and engages people in the Vital Farms business model. And frankly, I think drives a lot of the loyalty that we have today.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'd imagine that, that's probably your best marketing right there is, getting in front of that many people every day with that messaging.
Yeah, our packaging has always stood out in the earlier days when all the eggs were either in styrofoam or in pulp, kind of beige cartons. Having our black carton of eggs really was a differentiator. More recently, a lot of other brands have followed suit, and there's more of a clutter on the shelf. And so we have to continuously make sure we are standing out of that crowd, because it is a busy and really confusing set of products, especially that egg category. And then beyond the packaging, like you said, Ian, reinforcing our messaging with the Vital Times, which arguably is the most widely distributed or circulated magazine in the country with millions of issues a month. and continuing to keep the Vital Farms brand top of mind and present.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I shop, I would say like 50% of the time at Whole Foods, places like that. And I feel like there's so many places now like Whole Foods or, wherever, Sprouts or whatever it is, that it's kind of like these places that you can go and shop and you're going to get a certain level of sustainability and organic and like a lot of that sort of stuff. So you can kind of feel pretty confident that you can just kind of walk around and grab anything off the shelf. And you're going to be, there's kind of that level of quality. And I'm curious, like how many people you think are walking by and seeing Vital Farms and seeing the branding and have no idea what it is and are just like, oh, I'll try this or something like that. I'm curious, like if you have any kind of market research that you've done on why customers are choosing it.
Yeah, that's a great question. You mentioned Whole Foods, and that is where Vital Farms got its start, actually in the Midwest region, ironically, since we're based here in Texas. But there's going to be a different consumer and different shopper in some of those channels. Certainly, our awareness at Whole Foods today is much stronger than it is in some other places. And I think largely the Whole Foods shopper understands and knows our brand really well and is particularly seeking or finding some of the information that we put on our package, whether it be the certified humane certification that we have, whether it be an understanding of pasture raised with 108 square feet, or our business model. We do include our B Corp status on our package as well. So that consumer, that shopper is definitely honed in on that. But as we've grown and expanded into new channels, more mainstream grocery, and even some of the mass merchants, big box stores, we are further behind on that journey. And so we work a little bit harder to reach those people. We make sure that when we get into those new stores, especially more mainstream stores, that we do the best we can at shelf as well as digitally to reach the shoppers and start to plant the seed and start to embed what Vital Farms in as best we could. That said, there's a reality that decisions are made quickly at shelf. And so whether it be our shelf messaging or the packaging itself, that's really got to break through and encourage people to give us a try, because these eggs are not cheap relative to the category. Our typical SRP on our base dozen eggs is $5.99. You can buy some real cheap eggs, sometimes as cheap as 99 cents. And so people really have to have an understanding of why they should try us. And we do believe that once they do, they see the difference and recognize it. But we got to get that initial trial.
Do you have any favorite campaigns that you've done over the years? Obviously, you mentioned the No BS campaign, and we could go into that one if you want. But I'm curious, like how you think about creating campaigns and what mediums you want to use and what channels you're leveraging.
So I've had the fortune to work on some really terrific brands over my career so far. Vital Farms has an absolutely tremendous mission, a great product, and something I'm passionate about. And telling that story through the free campaign has been an absolute joy. It speaks to who we are as a brand from a tone perspective. It did help to explain functionally to consumers what the difference between cage-free and our eggs are. But it also speaks to who we are as a company, being transparent and trustworthy. It has reverberated throughout the organization. And I think the campaigns that I've worked on through my career that resonate the most with me are the ones that transcend advertising. They might be a great way to communicate to people, but they also communicate to the rest of the organization. Another example in my career was working on the Planters brand. Planters Nuts for many decades was known as a salty party peanut snack. But the reality is nuts are really healthy, and it's a real food that comes from the ground, simply roasted with a little bit of salt and oil. And so at the time that I was on the Planters brand, we were repositioning ourselves as naturally remarkable and wanted to focus on those health and real food credentials. And the work that we did not only changed the consumer-facing communication that we did, but really reinvigorated the organization down to every single person that worked on the production floor, to our farmer partners. Everyone could resonate with and get excited about positioning Planters brand as something that's good for people, good for the earth. And so that was really exciting for me. And I've always tried to bring the entire organization into the fold and make sure that our brand positioning, our brand ideas resonate and drive a lot more change in the organization than just an ad campaign.
That's so interesting about the nut example, because you're totally right that like for years and years and years, it was just kind of not necessarily marketed one way, but things change, being natural, being from the earth, being organic, all these things that now, were not a big deal, 30 years ago became a big deal. And, definitely the rise of like all different sort of nuts. But now they're this, they're a much more popular, everyday snack. Obviously, you have rise like paleo and all sorts of different things like that too. That now it's something that was traditionally one way and is now kind of in a new category, right? It's something that like, people pair with different things or have at different times or bring to their workouts or whatever it is. It's such a good reminder that something that always was seen one way can kind of get recreated in another.
Yeah, when I was on the Planters brand, the debate internally was around, are we a salty snack? Are we competing with Doritos in convenience stores? Which, there was some truth to. There's salt and is snackable, and it did come in those kind of sized packages in those channels. Or, based on where consumers are headed, we felt that it was really important to position ourselves as the real food with health credentials that we were. But those debates happen, I think, certainly in the larger companies. And once Kraft and Mondelez split up into two organizations, that Planters brand was run by a different team with a different mindset. And I think, frankly, took a very different approach at that point. Do you focus on building the brand? Do you focus on reducing costs and improving your margins? Those are trade-offs that are the real, especially in big public companies, and don't always, I think, follow suit to what's best for the brand or ultimately for the consumer.
Yeah, that is remarkable. So any other campaigns that over the years that you've been particularly interested by?
I have had the opportunity to sort of reposition or fix a couple of brands. Planters was one that we had to reposition away from salty snacks towards being a healthier, real food product. The other one, maybe more of a challenge, was Ritz crackers. Crackers are a dying category in the face of so many snacking alternatives that have come out over the years. And so the choice on the Ritz brand was to look at what assets we had and the nostalgia, the memories of people seeing Ritz crackers put out during the holidays and going visiting their grandparents or meeting. I remember one story from a consumer who talked about meeting her boyfriend's parents for the first time, and there was the spread of Ritz crackers and cheese. That nostalgia is really what the Ritz brand owned. And so the work that my team and our agency partners created was around the idea of life's rich. There is a rich, buttery taste of Ritz. That's what the product equity is. But those rich moments in life were really what drove consumers' recall of the brand and made them want to purchase maybe more than just the one time a year during Thanksgiving. And so that was a lot of fun to reposition something that was sort of heading in the wrong direction at the time. And then the other example I would give, because I think all marketing is about making some really clear choices and focusing. Earlier in my career, I worked on the Honey Bunches of Oats cereal brand. And when you work on a product like that, there's always the tension of, well, is it about the health or is it about taste? And too often, brands just look to be in the middle and want to be all things to all people and talk about balance, right? Or we're this and that. And the reality is you end up being no things to nobody instead of all things to all people. And so I remember that, again, just sort of early in my career, being very thoughtful about the choice we made to say, we're just going to communicate taste. Let the ingredient label, let the name Honey Bunches of Oats speak to the health credentials. But man, this thing is just tasty and delicious. And once you try it, you're going to get hooked. And so the campaign idea was called One Spoonful is All It Takes. It was all about just getting people to try it. And we went on the road and did sampling tours. This was a good while ago. And I love that. Even though I was just a brand manager at the time, but I love that we made that really clear choice. And there were a lot of people saying, well, wait, why don't you talk about the fiber? Or why don't you talk about the wheat or the health credentials of the flakes? And we kind of really towed the line and said, let's be clear. Our messaging is about getting people to try us because it tastes great. And to this day, I eat Honey Bunches of Oats, as does my family.
A staple of the Faison household growing up, for sure. So I have a question about marketing some of these types of products, because I think when you have a brand like that is so popular and beloved by a large percentage of people, the people who are going to buy Honey Bunches of Oats, no matter what the price is, no matter if it's on sale, no matter if they have a coupon, and then you have these this new demographic of people that you want to get in front of that might be slightly different, or the Ritz example is another good one where you have people who buy Ritz, but you want to try to get to a new audience. Our team here at Marketing Trends, big on cheese and crackers. We got a Slack cheese channel, talk about big cheese and crackers people. But I think that one of the things that someone like a Ritz or like Honey Bunches of Oats, you have a lot of brand affinity with that brand, but you're also looking for other options that are kind of like in that family. And you kind of see some brands doing this more recently, where it's like kind of the same way, when a company acquires another one and says powered by whatever, these kind of companion brands that serve that different kind of demographic of people, but still has like the kind of trust that you would get from Ritz crackers. Like, I don't want Ritz crackers to change at all, because when I want Ritz, that's what I want. But I do, want to see what else, maybe that brand could come up with. So how do you think about like marketing those type of new products?
Yeah, the amount of choice in the marketplace is absolutely staggering and becomes more of a challenge every single day and year. There's always the question of brand extension and extendability. And we face that. We're looking at that today. In my current role, certainly looked at that on brands like Honey Bunches of Oats and Planters and Ritz. And those are really tough choices, frankly. Ability for a brand to move into a new category and segment is very much going to be rooted in what they stand for and how broad they stand today. And so I think Ritz is a great example of a brand that had equity in crackers. And so extending into Ritz chips and extending into, at the time, we had some sandwich-based products that had some of the same core functional product equities, made sense. And some of those were relatively successful. But there's only so much room in people's minds, and people make brand associations very quickly. And so I'll make it up, Planters, even though it's a real food, to become a smoothie company, or to move into yogurt, even though it's also protein-based, is going to be a whole different conversation. I think a lot bigger of a stretch, because you say the word yogurt and brands like Chobani and Oikos and Dannon and Faya are going to come to mind. Do I trust this brand, or am I just associating this brand with that new product? Certainly from a Vital Farms perspective, that's a big piece of the assessments that we do as we look to grow this brand. Vital Farms has the ability, I think, to meet people's needs and to disrupt the food industry beyond eggs and butter, which we've been doing today. But it doesn't mean that we can be all things to all people in every category. And so we've got to make those choices, do some consumer vetting, see where there's an interest and extendability, but also where we might cross a line of alienation. At what point is there something that people start to question the core integrity of our brand if we go into that new segment? And so we do a lot of homework and have on all the brands I've worked on to think about the right approach, the right extendability, or when do you cut bait and just use a new brand to meet those consumer needs.
Can you talk a little bit about the traceability program that you all have?
Yeah, Vital Farms is all about building our brand, as I've said, based on truth and honesty and transparency. We would love to bring everyone we could to a farm, but the realities of travel, especially to some of our rural neighborhoods in the southern Midwest, just don't make that very practical. And so we've always wanted to show people where their food comes from, to build that trust. And frankly, because we're proud of what we do. And one way we were able to do that is through what we call traceability, by ultimately putting cameras on all of our farms, roughly 200 partner farms that we work with in our network. And all of those farms have cameras that have updated videos. And when you buy a carton of Vital Farms eggs, on the end, what's printed on there is not just the expiration date or the code date, but also the name of the farm that those eggs came from. We were able to do that because we have the direct relationships to farmers. Most brands, most companies in our industry buy and sell eggs on the open market as commodities. They may have some of their own farms, they may not. But because all of our eggs come from that network that we have that direct relationship with, we were able to trace eggs at the dozen level from the farm into our washing facility and out the machine to put that stamp on the carton. And so traceability has been, I think, a terrific example of our desire to be transparent and show people where their food comes from, but also enabled by the fact that we have that relationship and we work off of this stakeholder model and have the direct farmer contracts and relationships that we're proud of. I think that's been the home run for us, has been the combination of telling consumers and showing them what they're looking for, but also being able to frankly do it. And we don't think a lot of others, if any, can pull that off.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much in the market right now with a lack of transparency that it seems like that being a key differentiator, something you would want to focus on a lot with your marketing. Yeah,
again, people go to the farmers market because they can see the person that grew their food and they can make that association and build that trust for what they're eating. And we can't get all the way there with 16,000 retail locations and 200 farms, but we can certainly do our best to bring that connection, that human connection, to life.
So last year in the Salesforce study said that 29% of marketing leaders said they're satisfied with their ability to measure ROI. I'm curious, how do you think about ROI? How do you think about measuring it for your marketing activities? How do you leverage data to figure out new opportunities?
Yeah, we've been chasing this holy grail of marketing ROI and attribution for, I guess, as long as marketing has been a thing. And like I said earlier, the ability of some brands that are direct to consumer, even in industries like insurance, is pretty unique and special. We don't have that luxury, in a CPG world where we sell through the retailers. And so measurement certainly is tough, and it certainly is something that we continue to pursue. But the good news is there's no shortage of information. A lot of it's data, whether it be retail sales data or understanding shoppers through panel data, but also listening to all the emails, the phone calls, the social media comments that we get from consumers. And we aggregate all of that to put together the best puzzle that we can to understand what is our marketing doing. Some of it's going to be more qualitative, but there's certainly no lack of data to be able to show some movement of a needle over time towards increased household penetration, towards increased velocities off the shelf. And so we spend a lot of time digging into the data to do the best we can to assess our ROI or ROAS, but it's certainly not the full holy grail that we're all looking for.
So what's next for Vital Farms?
Ian, as you can imagine, I think the Vital Farms brand has a ton of potential to continue to reach more households and continue to disrupt the food industry. Eggs have historically been a commodity and a food that became industrialized. Yet we've proven Matt's vision that ethical food production can be scaled. You can take care of the animals and the farmers and the land and be good business partners and also do it at scale. And so there's no shortage of improvements that we need in our food system and categories and places that the Vital Farms brand can go.
Anything that surprised you over the last year? I know it's been a crazy year for everyone, but anything particularly that stood out?
We ran a campaign in the heart of COVID last summer of 2020, that was truly surprising and heartening. It was the reaction we got to a thank you campaign that we implemented. What we did was we used our Vital Times newsletter that we pack in all of our egg cartons and turned it into basically a reply card so that people could share their thanks with our employees at what we call Egg Central Station, the folks who pack and wash our eggs, as well as our farmers. And the response was absolutely overwhelming. We got about 3,000 consumer responses via email, including hundreds of them, which were handwritten notes, including drawings from kids, mailed to us with actual postage stamps. People took the time to do that and send them in. And the fact that thousands of people showed their concern, showed their appreciation for our frontline workers and our farmers was just a really terrific statement and something we were thrilled to share out. And again, a heartening moment during a tough time of COVID.
Okay, let's get into our lightning round questions. These questions are fast and easy, just like marketing with Salesforce. You can go to salesforce.com/marketing to learn more about marketing on the world's #1 CRM. That is Salesforce. And Salesforce has been with us since the very first episode of Marketing Trends, so we love them dearly. Go to salesforce.com/marketing to learn more. Lightning round questions. Scott, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Number one, is there one marketing campaign that you've seen recently that was not a Vital Farms campaign that you're particularly loving or jealous of or anything like that?
I'm a huge fan of Sweetgreen. I have not seen marketing from them, but I know that they do a lot of events, at least when they could, bringing bands to the local neighborhoods. And I love that combination of bringing what's important to a local community, including the food from that local environment and region and community together. And so while it's not an ad campaign necessarily, I love the approach that they're taking in the marketing that they've built that brand off of.
If you could have one person as a guest on a podcast to interview, who do you think it would be?
It has to be Elon Musk these days, especially because he's now my neighbor here in Austin, Texas. So I've got a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's right. In Austin, that's crazy. If you weren't in marketing at all or in business, what do you think you'd be doing?
I would hopefully be training to be a professional marathoner because that's my other passion. I just love to run and get out in the outdoors.
What is your best advice for a first-time CMO?
I am a classically trained marketer and believe that there is a ton of value in the models and traditions of consumer journeys and 4 Ps and Cs. Even though we all like to create new versions of it, that stuff works. It's been around for 70 years for a reason. And so don't forget the fundamentals.
Last question. What is one question that you never get asked that you wish you were asked more often?
What do I want to be when I grow up?
What do you want to be when you grow up?
It's funny. I love what I do. I've always been a marketing guy, but I found my passion for food, and I truly love building food brands. I'm a mentor in the SKU Accelerator here in Austin. And so hopefully someday I'll retire and just get to enjoy life, but maybe with no real responsibilities. But for the next few decades in front of me, I truly am doing what I want to do when I grow up.
Scott, thanks so much for joining. That's it. That's all we got for today. Everybody should go to vitalfarms.com to check them out. Go get, just try it, right? 1 spoonful of some eggs, as they say. Try 12, you'll never go back. And anything else? Any final thoughts? Anything to plug?
I appreciate you having me. It's about the mission. The products happen to be great, but the way we go about it is really what makes Vital Farms special. And appreciate the time to be able to talk about it.
Thanks, Scott. Take care.
Marketing Trends Podcast is brought to you by Salesforce. Discover marketing built on the world's #1 CRM, Salesforce. Put your customer at the center of every interaction. Automate engagement with each customer and build your marketing strategy around the entire customer journey. Salesforce. We bring marketing and engagement together. Learn more at salesforce.com/marketing.